Jeffrey Epstein's criminal trial, well, it never actually happened. He died in his jail cell back in 2019, and that left a whole universe of unanswered questions. But here's the thing. A massive trove of documents was just released, including thousands of his private emails, and it gives us a real glimpse into what might have been. So today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to look at these emails not as gossip, but as cold, hard evidence, a preview of the federal trial the world never got to see. And look, the sheer scale of this it's just staggering. The Department of Justice released 3.5 million files related to its investigation. And buried deep inside that mountain of data are the very emails prosecutors would have used to build their case for sex trafficking and conspiracy. So, to make sense of all this, we're going to structure this explainer just like a prosecutor would build their case. We'll start with why emails are such powerful evidence. Then we'll look at how they show Epstein knew he was doing something wrong, how they detail the actual mechanics of a trafficking operation, the methods of control, the powerful network involved, and finally, we'll get to the big questions that are still hanging in the air. All right, so first up, why are prosecutors so obsessed with emails? Well, in pretty much any complex criminal case, but especially this one. Emails are an absolute goldmine of evidence. Think about it. A conversation, you can deny it happened. But an email, that's a permanent written record. It's really hard to stand up and deny you sent it. And legally, that's just crucial. It can show a person's intent, it reveals detailed planning, and it locks down a clear timeline of events. And for a charge like conspiracy, emails are everything. They're the key to proving that 2 or more people had a mutual understanding to commit a crime. So where would a prosecutor even begin with all this? Often, they start with a legal concept called consciousness of guilt. Now, in simple terms, this is all about using a defendant's own words to prove they knew what they were doing was wrong. Just take a look at this 2014 email allegedly from Epstein. A prosecutor would have a field day with this. It's a textbook example of consciousness of guilt. See, he isn't just making some casual comment. He's directly worried about how things look, about the perception of age. This shows a crystal clear awareness that his activities could be seen as illegal or, at the very least, deeply improper. Okay, so we've established that he probably knew his actions were wrong, but how would prosecutors prove the actual crime of sex trafficking? Well, they'd use these emails to lay out the mechanics of the whole operation, piece by piece. First, let's just get the legal definition straight, because it's really important. At its core, sex trafficking is about recruiting someone for commercial sex by promising them something of value. And that thing of value, it doesn't have to be money. It could be a trip, a job, pretty much any kind of benefit. And this is where an email like this becomes absolutely devastating for the defense. Epstein allegedly links a trip, the thing of value, directly to how sexy photos are. For a prosecutor, that is a straight line. It connects a benefit to a sexual demand, and that forms the very bedrock of a sex trafficking charge. But look, one email isn't enough to prove a whole trafficking operation, right? Prosecutors need to show a pattern. A kind of organized, systematic process of finding, vetting, and then transporting women. And this exchange from 2009, this is what they'd use to show that exact system in action. It's so cold, so procedural. The question about age, the direct command to bring it to New York, and then that simple confirmation. It reads less like a conversation and more like the logistics of moving a person from point A to point B. Now, beyond the physical mechanics, these emails also give us this really disturbing window into the psychological manipulation that was allegedly going on. A huge part of the prosecution's case would have focused on proving a pattern of grooming and control. You know, an email like this one it's just incredibly revealing. It shows this immense vulnerability. A prosecutor would argue that Epstein specifically sought out and exploited this exact kind of insecurity. They would frame this not as some consensual interaction, but as a predatory grooming tactic, aimed squarely at someone looking for validation and confidence. And the case wouldn't have stopped there. The emails strongly suggest that the abuse wasn't just for Epstein himself. They point to him trafficking and even outsourcing women to other powerful men, exercising total control over their activities. This email has such a chilling implication. A prosecutor would put this in front of a jury and ask a very simple question. How would Jeffrey Epstein know a woman had been with many men in just a few weeks unless he was the one arranging it?
This would be used as incredibly powerful evidence that he was managing her sexual encounters, a key element of a trafficking charge.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit, because the prosecution, they wouldn't have just focused on Epstein. These emails reveal a vast network of powerful and connected people, and their communications would have been absolutely central to proving a wider conspiracy. And this is where things get really, really messy for a lot of people in Epstein's orbit. You see private emails, like one from an account linked to Elon Musk asking about the wildest party, right next to public denials, like his statement that he always declined invitations. This exact kind of contradiction between what someone says in private and what they say in public is a massive red flag for investigators. And make no mistake, this isn't just ancient history. These emails are having real-world consequences right now. Just look at this timeline for the British politician Peter Mandelson. In 2009, he allegedly replies to Epstein getting out of jail with "naughty boy." Well, fast forward to today, and that very exchange is part of a criminal investigation that's been launched against him in London. And the list just goes on and on. You have the publicist Peggy Siegel joking in an email about bringing a little baby back for you, director Woody Allen, who Epstein joked with about attending a pedophile convention, and the UN diplomat Tae Rode Larson, who ended up resigning over his ties to Epstein. What these emails really paint is a picture of a vast network that was, at the very least, disturbingly comfortable in Epstein's world. So let's pull all this evidence together. When you step back and look at these emails through the eyes of a prosecutor, a really clear and frankly really disturbing picture starts to form. You can see how the evidence would just stack up. They'd have a mountain of it for consciousness of guilt, a ton for the actual mechanics of trafficking, and then they'd show this wide web of complicity. I mean, the case against him would have been formidable. And that's why these documents are so much more than just salacious gossip. They were the building blocks for a massive federal prosecution. They paint this damning picture of a sophisticated criminal enterprise, and they represent the preview of a trial that was cut short before it could even begin. Which, of course, leaves us with the one huge, unavoidable question that hangs over all of this. It's the question victims and the public have been asking for years now. With evidence this clear and a network this vast, why hasn't anyone else been prosecuted?